Infernum is one of Terraria's most difficult mods. It is known to be treacherous, dangerous, and better yet, crazy. But I'm the type of guy that likes those type of things, so I will be trying my best to beat this mod as summoner only. And you may be wondering where the challenge is. Well, the challenge is playing summoner. I hate that class. And on top of that, it'll be on Infernum. Will I be able to do it? I don't know, probably. So I started my Infernum journey just like everybody else, wondering why I'm putting myself through this again. I mean, summoner can't be that bad, right? Anyways, I get a pretty good base of operations down. I mean, it doesn't look the best. I'm kind of being a little snoozer this time around, you know, using insta houses. And yeah, quality of life, boo-hoo. But I mean, for a base, it does look pretty snazzy. Went with the simple 4 housing rule. That's not even a rule, but I don't even know what I'm talking about. And now I did decide it was time to finally head out. One of the first things that was on my list to get was the sandstorm in a bottle. And thankfully, I got a really weird world gen where I had 2 deserts on the left and right of me. Really strange. And I actually found a temple on the right side pretty quickly. And upon digging down, I get exactly what I'm looking for, that sandstorm in a bottle. Hey, I got it. Hell yeah. So I mean, hey, I can't complain. I then exit out of the temple and head a little bit right, because I'm also on the lookout for Wolfram droids. And these little bastards will help me get my first set of armor, that being the Wolfram droid armor, I think, the Wolfram set, yada yada. I don't make it very far before I actually come across a few, getting a few bit of Wolfram scrap, and then finding a nice basic Terraria cave. I mean, what more could you want? I kept on trucking over to the right and came across the jungle, but this is still early game and I'm definitely not prepared to go there, so I head back home. And by the first night, all my houses were also filled. I mean, I had the lumberjack, the guide, the merchant, and the robot dude. So I had to make some more houses, and their towers are coming together quite beautifully. Shit looks sleek as hell. And since it's Infernum and nighttime, I mean, hey, let's dig down. And now there's a few things I want from this mining trip. That being life crystals, some silt, some amethyst, and I think that's about it. So I kept digging, coming across some silt and a big vein of amethyst, easily securing my hook right off the bat. I did also manage to find a few life crystals, but before my mining journey could go any further, I ultimately fell to my death. And yes, I am heartbroken that my first death was caused by me falling to death. Quite unfortunate. But once I respawned at base, I crafted my amethyst hook and my first summoner weapon, being the Wolfram droid controller. Damn, look at it, bruh. Shit look funky as hell. I then built a couple more houses, and our towers are looking quite large. But it is nighttime, so that means we're heading back into the caves. And I'm still in search for silt and some more life crystals. I did thankfully find a bunch of life crystals, and it was actually enough life crystals to max out our health. But my inventory's full, so it's time to go back home. And upon getting back home, I'm not quite done exploring for right now, so I head off to the right as I wanted to get the Wolfram armor. And I spent literally the whole next Terraria day killing hundreds of Wolfram droids. I did get enough Wolfram scrap, but it turns out I needed these things called energy cores, which I could only get from these special Wolfram droids. So I had the stuff to make the armor, but not quite. So instead of wasting my whole next day, I actually found out you could use the stuff that is dropped from the Wolfram droids on an extractinator to get energy cores. In my experience in playing Terraria, the best way to get an extractinator is the desert. So I go ahead and I make my way over there. And thankfully not that far in, I do find an abandoned house with an extractinator. I then scrap the Wolfram drops and I get 2 out of the 3 I need, so it's better than nothing. And since I'm pretty determined to finish this armor set, I head back over to my Wolfram droid farming spot, and I actually get one of those guys that energizes the Wolfram droids to drop energy cores. And with that, I finished my first set of armor. And hey, we're looking mad spiffy. And we also have a +1 minion slot now. So now we got 2 of these motherfuckers chilling. And now I'm just missing one thing, and you may be wondering what that is. It's a whip, you idiots. I need a whip. And the first whip on our list is the Snapthorn. So we bouncing our ass over to the jungle. I do have some pretty good luck down here, not dying, which is kind of surprising, especially for early game jungle. I mean, look at all these man-eaters surrounding my ass. I am very thankful because I actually managed to get all the materials for the Snapthorn in one go, believe it or not. So I go ahead and I craft it up. I then decide to kind of chill out for a minute as I haven't really stayed at my base and I'm getting tired of these chests and sorting everything. So it's time to build a little storage room with our very beloved magic storage mod. I throw something pretty nice together. Doesn't look insanely crazy, but I like it. But before we take on our good old buddy King Slime, I have a few accessories that I would love to get right now. And this first one is gonna lead me right back to pretty much where this all started, the underground desert. And you may be wondering what this accessory is, and it's Luxar's gift, Luxar's, something along those lines. Pretty much it's gonna give me a free summon, kind of. But I end up searching around for maybe a good 15 minutes near the bottom trying to find this place. And you know, a good indicator of finding it is that it's usually lit up with torches, at least from what I know. So after a bit of time, I kind of give up on that, and as I'm heading back to the top, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I check over here? What's the worst that could happen? And lo and behold, it's right freaking in front of my face. So yeah, screw the world gem for not putting torches around the shrine. And now is probably a really good time to mention why I needed silt so much. And it was mainly for diamonds. I needed it for my magic storage, and this next accessory being the spirit cliff. This one kind of just puts random buffs on my character. And with that, we have all maxed out accessory slots. And so you know what that means? It's time to make our beautiful and lovely arena. Now back in my rogue playthrough, I didn't prepare at all during any of my fights. Looking back, I don't really know why. I mean, I had an arena, but like it was an arena for like classic difficulty. So I made sure to prepare this time. I even had to cut out a portion of my desert to make this arena. I wanted to make it large, beautiful, all that sort of jazz. And I even made sure to put some campfires, some heart lanterns, and I even grabbed a bass statue while I was in the desert. So I should be pretty prepared for this fight. And speaking of the fight, it was finally time to fight him. For pretty much the first half of the fight, I didn't really take that much damage. I actually didn't even take any damage at all. And I actually ended up getting some adrenaline off, which was kind of beyond my amazement. But I did start to lose some focus during the end, but was able to regain it pretty fast. Damn, no way I just beat that shit first try. Oh my goodness. I am a god. Oh, shit. And yep, you saw that right. I beat King Slime my first try on Infernum. Fucking locked in during that fight. Holy moly. All the other times I have tried this, he is taking me probably almost 30 attempts to beat. I blame Rogue and Ranger for that. Now, the only cons with defeating the King Slime right now is that I still can't really progress any further, even going into the Desert Scourge fight. So before I have to take on another Infernum boss, I decide to take it chill and just explore. And now that I've taken the time to explore, it was time to get prepared for the Desert Scourge. Now instead of me making a whole new arena, I just extended the arena I already had, because I mean it was already into the desert. And like I said, I'm making sure I'm prepared this time, because I ain't trying to spend 40 attempts on a single boss. But it was time to fight Long Snaky Boy. I unfortunately do die on my first attempt, and I actually get the achievement, the first of many, so that's pretty exciting. Now I still do die quite a bit, like 4 or 5 times I think, but it was just because I was rusty, that's all it was. And on my god attempt, I do get in there, I bust a few moves, you know, get pretty low on health, but I ultimately do defeat him. Damn, okay, that wasn't so bad. That was a lot easier. But now since the Desert Scourge is defeated, we can actually get some new armor already, that being the Victide armor. So I say so far we're doing pretty good. W. But the good thing about this Victide armor is that I actually needed to get this next accessory, that being Voltic Jelly. And the good thing about this little John is that it gives us an extra minion slot. So I'm gonna have 3 droids now, which is gonna be pretty dang poggers. I do quickly make it down to the beautiful sunken sea, and this biome is just always amazing. But besides that, I keep farming these jellyfish and I eventually get it to drop. Yes, I got it. Thank you. And upon arriving back at home, I kind of just decided to fight the King Slime a few times, because I am gearing up to fight the Eye of Cthulhu next. And even with an extra minion and some new armor, I can't beat the King Slime. But enough time passes between those fights, and it is now nighttime, and that means Eye of Cthulhu. Now the first attempt of the fight goes about as well as peanut butter and jelly, pretty bad. I did manage to get him down like really low, so it wasn't too shabby. But the second attempt, it was just right. Big dub. Big Debbie. I do go ahead and plop on that Shield of Cthulhu because I love me my dashes. And then I say screw it and fight the Eye of Cthulhu again, beating her back to back. And I actually get a new summon weapon being that eye rod, which is pretty sick and it should help out a little bit within the next few bosses. And before we fight Crabulon, our next boss, I did want to make some houses over in the jungle just so I could get my teleporters going. So I quickly make my way over there, place about 3 insta houses down. Doesn't look insanely crazy, but it is what it is. And then I make my way down to the mushroom biome to set up an arena for Crabulon. And I know we're kind of just zooming through bosses at the moment, but I really have nothing progression-wise to get. I get a nice little arena put down, and then make my way over to the corruption to make a spawn item, and then make my way back to the mushroom biome, and I start the fight. Now, one big thing I took away from my rogue fight was that I was moving around too much fighting this boss. I still died a lot, but once I kind of figured out his stuff, I stayed close to him pretty much the whole time, and it was an easy fight, especially with the Shield of Cthulhu. I will say though, the only downside of this fight is how long it takes to kill him. I could have door dashed something and it'd have been here faster than beating him. Oh. And upon returning to my base, I opened his treasure bag and actually got a really nice summoner accessory, the fungus clump. I basically get another summon, and it steals health for me, so it's kind of good, kind of bad. It's more in the middle. And you know, at the moment, I'm feeling really confident about all the bosses I'm fighting. I'm beating them all within like 5 tries, sometimes not even that. So I'm like, okay, let's head over to the corruption, set up an arena, get the stuff ready for the Eater of Worlds. And keep in mind, I hate corruption. I absolutely cannot stand it. Crimson is my go-to pretty much every playthrough, but when making my world I put it on random, so I have no idea how this boss is going to play, especially in Infernum. And oh boy, this was my first wall so far. What is this? This is insane. The first, I'd say like 10 times, I could just not get his pattern down. He felt random at times, and it was just a horrible experience. Oh my god, I was taking so much damage. Genuinely, I was crashing out. I don't even know what I'm getting hit by. Shade Rain? Oh shit. No, damn, I was almost... I just died so fast. That is something else. And the part of the fight that genuinely pissed me off the most was his third stage when he pops 4 of these boys out. Like, how are you supposed to dodge any of this shit, bruh? So I decided to stop before I actually broke something and focus on something different. So I took a breather, grabbed a graph potion, and took myself to the skies, coming across the first laboratory you're supposed to find in Calamity, and then just pretty much just exploring the whole sky. And I did get a balloon, which I will actually need for one of my accessories in the future. And upon returning, I did do something different that I didn't do in my last playthrough, and it was put these code breakers down. I think they're code breakers because I can just have these things build up until endgame. But I went back to exploring the left side of the sky, getting some pretty decent loot, and eventually falling in the Sulfuric Sea, where the acid rain event started. And it was actually a good thing that this event happened because I needed sulfuric scales for this summoner weapon. It's a sentry. I crafted 2 of them. One was kind of boring and useless. It was an exploding toad. And the other one emitted radiation, which was actually quite helpful. So I said, screw it. Let's go try the Eater of Worlds again. And yeah, it was horrible. It got to the point where I needed to look up YouTube videos to see how other people were doing it. And it didn't even help. Ah, man, I can't. And to make matters worse, the game decided to grant me a blood moon. And there's a blood moon. So I had to spend the entirety of my night doing the blood moon event. But I'm not going to complain there because that's just another check mark off the box. And once morning arrives, I decide that I want to prepare a little bit more. But pretty much anything I needed the Tinkerer's workbench. But I haven't had a Goblin Army happen yet. So I had to do it the old school route and farm Goblin Scouts. Well, there's one right there. Look at that. And let me tell you, this is about as annoying as fighting the boss. It took me well over an hour to get 5 tattered cloth. An hour. Up the spawn rates, please. Then I teleported home, did the Goblin Army, easiest shit of my life, and then started the next tedious process of fighting the Goblin Tinkerer. This was almost as horrible as fighting Goblin Scouts. I spent 40 minutes trying to find this guy, and I even used the Danger Sense and Hunter Potion thing. And it was even so bad that I took a break for a day, and by break I meant I had to sleep. Trying to find this Goblin Tinkerer, but he won't spawn. And once I hit that, I'm hopping off this shit. I'm doing it for like half an hour. And of course, within the first like 15 minutes of the next day, I find him. It amazes me what this game can do. But now that I found him, I can cop the Tinkerer's workbench and finally start combining some of my accessories. The first few things I make are the Spectre boots and the Sandstorm in a balloon. And it's not the craziest of things to progress in, but it should help me a little bit with my Eater of Worlds fight. But I also remembered that I could also upgrade to lightning boots, and all I needed was an anklet. So I skedaddled my way over to the jungle to find one. And on my mining trip, I do find the jungle laboratory, so that was pretty exciting. And I also find this cool like cherry blossom area. I don't don't know if it's always been there, but I know this big open area has always been here, but nonetheless, it's really cool. I do also find the jungle temple, which is really nice to find right now, just so I have it in the future. And right next to this was an underground jungle tree with a chest containing the anklet. So now we can head back and make the lightning boots. And I actually have one more thing I want to do before the Eater of Worlds, and that's to get another pylon set up because I'm tired of running to the jungle. So I go ahead and I set up a little forest base. Quite quaint. I tried to make it look a little bit cool. You can rate it in the comments or whatever. But now that we were done with that, it was time to fight the Eater of Worlds. And to be honest, I beat him on my first attempt of the day.
Locked in, holy shit.
And with beating the Eater of Worlds, we can actually get a really good summon weapon, that being the Vile Feeder. It basically spawns a bunch of little eaters to follow me around, and these things, ooh, they are good. And I decided I want to test these on a boss that I haven't really fought yet, well, mini boss. So I make my way to the Sunken Sea to try it on the giant clam, and I don't know what I was thinking fighting him like this, but I mean, they did okay, I guess. I then spent the next little bit just fighting the Eye of Cthulhu just to make a little bit of bread and selling a bunch of my stuff, and then deciding to finally finish my elevator and go get some hellstone because I've yet to do that either. And I also made sure to snag a hellforge. And there's actually one really good thing we can do with this hellstone, and that is to make some obsidian armor. It's the next armor in our progression, and I mean, it'd be better to have it than our Vic Tide. And of course, I also make sure to grab some obsidian on my way back. And once I arrive back at my base, I craft it up, and it looks spiffy. I'm almost like a cowboy. Yeehaw, that was gross. And now I think it's honestly a good time to fight another boss, believe it or not. This time it will be a first in Cold Toast history fighting the Hive Mind. Thank God I don't have to do a whole lot of arena building because it's just in the corruption again. And you could either spawn this guy in with the cyst on the ground, but I wanted to make his actual summon, so I did that, and then we got to it. First attempt, it was alright. It's just kind of starting to pick up on the projectile side of things. Of course, I do die, but believe it or not, I beat this motherfucker on my second try.
Too damn easy.
And the best thing to come out of defeating this boss is we have a new ore to mine now, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. Once I arrive back at home, I make my little forest base look a little bit cooler. I literally just added fences. Looks stylish as hell. And then I instantly take to the skies because I'm gonna get me some of that aerolite ore to make skyline wings. And I also made sure to farm a bunch of harpies because you also need this for the skyline wings. But we finally get what we need and we craft these bad boys up, and we finally have our first set of pre-hard mode wings. Absolutely stunning, and this should help a lot with the next few boss fights. And while this is all going on, I also take a trip over to the snow biome and get myself some ice skates to make frostspark boots, because we're also going to eventually need terraspark boots. And now it's time to get the arena ready for our next fight, being Queen Bee. And before, I thought it was just strange world gen about a big ass beehive being near the surface, but it seems to be in every Infernum world. So I go ahead and I put a small arena down, and I take on my first attempt, but I die really freaking fast. That was nice. And then I decided to take a break and try again tomorrow. Now, upon awaking the next day, I went straight back to the jungle to fight the Queen Bee. I did decide to make the arena just a tad bit bigger, but this caused me to accidentally explode a larva, so I had no choice but to fight her. And thankfully, I was able to do pretty decent. I had some close calls, but I did come out on top. And since I'm back at home, I'm able to craft up to 2 pieces of the bee armor. So that means I have to go fight her again, which kind of sucks. But we do have an upper hand now because I was able to buy the pygmy necklace, which if you didn't know, gives you an extra minion slot. So I went back to the arena, started the fight up, and beating her pretty easily. So this means we can now finish our set of bee armor, giving us another minion slot. So we're starting to do really damn good. And before fighting Skeletron, yes, I know, we're already going to fight another boss pretty much the same day. I wanted to set up a pylon system in the snow biome, so I went over there, built some cool houses in this little little undercroft area, and then made my way to the dungeon. And I set up my basic arena, making sure it was big because I remember this boy's attacks and we're gonna need to run for a little bit. I do get a really big arena set up, and I start my first attempt kind of forgetting how he played out. Of course I died. I mean, it is what it is. And even on my second and third attempt, I slowly started remembering how his attacks went and what I was supposed to do. And on my fourth attempt, the she was golden. And now that I'm back in my base, I do make airlight armor. I don't end up wearing it because the bee armor is just superior to this shit. And then I decide to kind of expand my little storage room. I mainly wanted to do it for mannequins because I like displaying my old sets of armor as a sense of progression. And some vanity, which is kind of a new thing for me. So I spiff up something that looks pretty decent. I mean, I think it looks cool. But we have a whole new area to explore, and that's the dungeon. And I'm actually on the lookout for 3 things in this John. That being bones, so I can make a new whip. Hallelujah. I also need, I don't remember which skeleton it was that drops this item, but it's the Staff of Necro. I'm not even going to say the rest of it because I just tried practicing, but it wouldn't come out. And of course a bewitching table. And I guess technically a 4th thing, the alchemy station. Oh, and I guess another 5th thing, the mechanic. So we got quite the journey ahead. And pretty much a few seconds into the dungeon, I do find an alchemy station and the mechanic right next to each other. So that was pretty poggers. I then spend the next little bit kind of just killing things, waiting for that staff to drop. I also weirdly find the tavern keep down here. I didn't even know he could spawn in here, which was really weird. But it's a good thing we needed him because we need to do the old one's army. I then kill a few more things, and eventually that staff does drop, so that's pretty exciting. And so I'm only on the lookout for one more thing, the bewitching table, which now that I look back at the recording, I passed one so easily. So I think it's about time we head back to base. And upon arriving, I store all my shit, I craft the spinal tap, I then take it over to my goblin tinker, reforge that boy up to legendary, because we gotta make sure we do that summon damage, you hear me? It was then time to retire the Shield of Cthulhu, opting in for the counter scarf. I mean, it gives me some invulnerability when I dash through something, so it's much more worth it. I then farmed the king slime for a good like 20 minutes just to get enough money to reforge all of my stuff to warding, because since I'm a summoner, I'm a little bit squishy and it would be nice to have some of the defense. I then make it my next goal to find the shimmer and set up a pylon system down there. I never really go to the shimmer in any of my playthroughs, but I'm trying to do things a little different this time, and I do actually end up digging pretty much on top of it right off the rip, set up a nice little base, get people moved down here, and I start throwing in some permanent buffs. Accidentally eating my apple for the ambrosia, that's okay, we can just come back. And you guys are probably gonna hate me for this next part because this is a quality of life little tip right here. I'm not even gonna call it a tip, but I buy my accessories to make the lava waders and then eventually the Terra Spark boots, but it's okay because I have Terra Spark boots now. But I feel like it's been a minute since we fought a boss. And the next one on our list is the slime gods. So I make my way back over to the corruption, don't have to set up an arena or anything, and I get started on the fight. And like I said, I don't know if I'm just been super lucky or if it's because I played Infernum 6 months ago. I do end up beating the slime gods on my second attempt. And it was actually a really good thing that we beat the slime gods, because I can actually craft the Eye of the Night summon weapon now, which is going to be my next good summon weapon. You need like 4 freaking staffs and purified gel. So I make my way to the corruption to a demon altar, craft it up, and oh boy, this thing is beautiful. It pretty much summons little eyes that almost attach onto things, so it's really sick. And now we're kind of approaching the end of pre-hard mode. I only have 2 main bosses left, being Deerclops and the Wall of Flesh, of course. So I kind of spend the next little bit just doing all the side stuff, like this, the Old One's army. And it's crazy how much easier this is as Summoner, and I really gave Summoner a lot of shit. Oh yeah, and there's a little mini boss fight at the end of the first, I guess, stage of the Old One's army, the Dark Mage. Dude almost caps me, but you know, I pulled up my clutch. I do proceed to start on the status gel armor, not having enough, so eventually we'll get the rest to make that armor. And then I farm Crabulon because I really want his trophy, and I probably beat him like 10 times I think, didn't drop, so I gave up on that. And like I said, I wanted to explore a lot of the side content in Infernum and Calamity, and that means the Abyss. I kind of explored it a little bit in my rogue playthrough, but not, I guess, the full way. I mean, I missed out on a whole boss down there, but I take my way down to the Abyss. I find a few crates, this weird like structure, and I also find another NPC, which which I had no idea who it was. And this was also when I found out that there's actually another staff, summon weapon I can get down here called the herring staff. It's gonna be one of my main objectives to come in the future. I don't get it for a little bit, so. And I still don't really know how the layers work either. I think I'm in the first layer, but I do manage to find the iron boots. And yes, I had to look up a guide for this because I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And then I exploded due to the pressure, so that was cool. But now it's time to go finish off the giant clam, just to have him done and get the NPC out of him. Fight went about as well as you'd expect. And then it was Torch God time. I did fail my first time. Second time, got it pretty good. And we completed the Torch God, so that's another... I don't even know if he would even be a boss. I'm not sure. But I wanted to see that 100% check mark in my boss book thing. And so that meant I had to go fight the Perforators. And thankfully, Calamity or Infernum, whatever one, gives you a little island to fight these guys on. The opposite evil biome. But the only problem is it's located up in space. And you have pretty much no control over your jumps, which really sucks and makes it extremely difficult. I think I tried this close to 20 times and could just not get it. So we're moving on to the next thing, which is fighting our next progression boss, Deerclops. But besides that, I get a nice little arena built, and I tried Deerclops quite a bit. Can't do it. I really didn't know what was happening. Every time I'd go up to dodge her attacks, her spikes would just hit me due to my platforms. So some things had to change. That being taking down the top 2 layers of my arena really sucked, but it should help me beat this boss really easy. And now before we go fight the final boss of pre-hard mode, I wanted to get 2 more things. The herring staff and the rest of my Citadel armor. I do get some diving helmets and stuff prepared. I ended up getting up to the Arctic helmet, that way to make myself last a little bit longer down in the abyss. And after about 10 minutes, I find a patch of herrings, get about 6 or so staffs. And then I find out that these things they're fucking insane. I mean, look how many I have on my screen. And in between all this, I did craft up Citadel armor, so our defense was pretty damn decent. But now it was time to get prepared for the Wall of Flesh. Before placing down my obsidian insta-ridges, I did make sure to search the entirety of the underworld, collecting every shadow chest, exploring, I think it was called the Bloomfield if I remember. It's where the Brimstone Elemental boss is, and I didn't even know there was chests there either. I found 2 chests, which was pretty sick. And of course I found the Profane Gardens, which is beautiful as ever. Not looking forward to that boss fight whatsoever. But I'm ready, and I place down my insta-bridge, and I start my first attempt with the Wall of Flesh. And now the first attempt wasn't too horrible. I did get the Wall of Flesh super low. Damn, we were right there. Second attempt goes about the same. Get capped by a laser. No way, man. I didn't want to jump. The third attempt, the exact same way. Oh, hell no. Come on. No. And I went to my fourth attempt, focusing all the eyes pretty much. I wanted to get them all to the same level. That way they would all, blow apart at the same time. And then I could focus directly on the wall. And this does end up working. Okay, third time. Oh my god.